Alright guys, so in today's video, I get to geek out a little bit. I've always said if Skullcandy ever releases a wireless version of the Skullcandy Aviators, I'd be one of the first ones to buy it. Like, the Aviators used to be one of my favorite headphones back in the day. There was something about the design, there was something about the sound, and I was kind of a Skullcandy fanboy, like way before I started reviewing headphones. So they finally did it. It is now 2025. I would say that the original Skullcandy Aviators probably came out over 20 years ago, at least around 20 years ago. I don't remember the exact year those were released. And I have to say, I immediately went out and bought them because they've made this pretty interesting with some of the specs that they've had. But they did come in with a pretty high price tag. Because the Skullcandy Aviator 900 ANC, which is the model we're checking out today, comes in at $299. So from a noise canceling wireless headphone standpoint, if you look at it that way, it's kind of competing with the Sony and with the Bose and with Beats, which I don't really consider that like a huge competitor. But those are your mainstream noise canceling wireless headphones. And yeah, I would even throw the Sennheiser Momentums in there. So how do they stack up? Is it worth the $300 price tag? What's different about these? We'll talk about all of that. But the first thing I want to talk about is the design, because again, that was one of the things that I always loved about the original Aviators, and I am happy to say that they've really stuck to the design that the originals had. Now, they definitely have changed some things. They have made them a lot more durable. There's some really good flexibility, but when you look at them, like before you even pick them up, you would think this is gonna be a heavy headphone. And to be honest, when I picked them up, I was surprised with how light this pair of headphones are. The padding on these, it does use some pleather padding right underneath. It gives you, just enough. Again, these aren't very heavy, so it didn't require a lot of padding. They are pleather ear pads, and it is memory foam. Now, the ear pads on these are not very deep. And I will say that on some people, it might even be considered on ear instead of over the ear because of the way that they're designed. They do fold down to be a very small footprint so it can fit in a bag. They also swivel both ways, so I do like that they have those options. With the controls, they went with a bunch of different things here. Now, it doesn't use touch controls, which I am glad they didn't do that. It does use physical buttons. There's also a joystick, there's a wheel, there's a custom button, and I am happy to say that out of the box, you get control over everything. So you can do everything on the headphones themselves. You can also go within the app and switch some things around if you want to do that. And I do highly recommend downloading the app because you get so many different things that you can control and turn on and turn off. And this headphone actually has quite a bit of features. It does have Bluetooth 5.3, so it doesn't have like the latest Bluetooth, but it does have multi-point connection, so you can connect to more than one device at a time. It also has THX spatial audio. So if you're familiar with THX, you've probably seen it at the movie theaters. It's always been one that's known for its surround sound. And spatial audio, again, I'm going to say this, I'm just not the biggest fan of. But they do give you the ability to toggle this on and off, and then also turn on the head tracking. You can slide how much of the THX or spatial audio you want to use, so there is a lot of control over this. But I am also going to point out, though, that within the app, if you slide it, to get it where you want to, for some reason it just kicks back up to, all the way at max or all the way down to minimum. I don't know why it's not staying exactly where I put it. But again, this is something hopefully they'll fix in a firmware update. Also within the app, you get the ability to go through this listening test so that will personalize an EQ setting or sound based off what it thinks that your ears are reacting to different sounds. This is very important, and we'll go over all of this once we get to the sound. There are some different EQ settings, just a few that you can switch between. Now, I do want to point out, if you go into the custom EQ setting where you can, dial it in the way that you want, almost immediately. Now, I do not recommend having these headphones on your head when you first turn it into custom mode, because the volume goes so much higher than it does with all of the pre-built EQ settings. I don't know why this is, but almost the first time you start to adjust anything, the volume just goes up almost twice as loud as what you're listening to. Again, hopefully they can fix this in a firmware update, because I don't think this is really supposed to happen. Some other things is it does have Spotify Tap, where you can just, with a single touch, have Spotify open up and just start playing music. There is a low latency or gaming mode. So if you're going to be using these for different types of media, you could switch it into this mode to cut down any kind of lag. And there's also a Find My Headphones feature. If you happen to misplace your headphones, you can use your app to be able to locate them. Now, as far as what all they've included with these, they included a pretty nice carrying case. The one thing I don't like, which you do have the option to not use it this way, is it also can be used as like a crossbody bag. It comes with the strap to be able to put into the bag, to be able to wear it across. I don't know. I don't like wearing bags that way, but again, at least it's just an option. As far as the cables go, they do include a 3.5mm cable if you want to use these as just a normal pair of headphones. And then it also comes with a USB-C cable, which you would use to charge these. Now, the battery life on these, I am going to say, is very impressive, especially considering how loud they get and how much you can push these. If you use them with the noise canceling off, you can get about 60 hours on a full charge. Even with the noise canceling on, you can still get 40 hours on a single charge. And if you do happen to pick them up and they are dead, it does have a good fast charging feature where a quick 10-minute charge will get you about 4 hours of use. Now, another thing that I found on these headphones, but I couldn't find like the specific IP rating, is it does have a coating to give these some slight water resistance. So you can use these at the gym, and if you sweat heavily or if you're outdoors and it starts to rain a little bit, they are slightly protected against that. I just don't know how much they are protected. I couldn't find, again, the exact IP rating for these. So now let's talk about the noise canceling, because in this price range, this is definitely something that's gonna have to be good to compete against a lot of the other more well-known consumer brands out there. And I am happy to say that the noise canceling on these are pretty impressive. I would definitely put it in line more so with like the Sennheiser Momenums instead of like, I wouldn't say that it has the noise canceling of the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultras. I wouldn't say that it has the noise canceling of the Sony XM line, especially the XM5s or the XM6. But I am going to say it is not far off from it. And the noise canceling not only does a good job against lower tones like engine noises, AC units, and things like that, but even with people talking or a TV or anything that has the higher frequencies, it does a really good job of blocking out a lot of that as well. So Skullcandy did something pretty impressive when it comes to the noise canceling here. Now, when it comes to the awareness mode, it also does a good job here. I don't know if it's the 6 microphones that they're using for the noise canceling, if they're using those same 6 mics for the awareness mode, but what it does is it makes things sound pretty natural. So, it's very easy to carry on a conversation. It's really easy to just wear them and have everything pumped in and be able to, just hear things like you would as if you didn't have your headphones on at all. And also within the app, you have the ability to have it automatically adjust noise canceling. You can go in and dial it in exactly how much noise canceling you want it to do. And same thing with the awareness mode. You can, max it out or pull it back some if you just want a little bit being pumped into your headphones. So now let's talk about the sound. And I am going to say that out of the box, the sound it's just okay. It wasn't anything special. In fact, it immediately had me worried that I just dropped over $300 on a pair of headphones that I probably wasn't going to keep. I didn't think the sound was that great out of the box. I noticed that I like to listen to it at max volume out of the box. And these are all red flags. These are all things that I don't necessarily like when I pick up a pair of headphones just out of the gate. But this is where the app completely saved these, because again, as soon as I started to mess with the EQ, the volume got way too loud, so that already fixed that problem. And these responded really, really well when it came to not only going through the hearing test, but also just dialing it in the way that I wanted it. Because you can even, after you go through the listening test, you can, alter it some there, and you can slide how much of it you want to affect the overall sound. So there is so much customization with the sound that means that you really are going to have to just play with it a lot to get it to sound exactly like you want it to. So do not, immediately judge these by the way that they are out of the box. I got these to sound pretty comparable to all of the other mainstream wireless noise canceling headphones that I mentioned. So that starts to bring value to these, because at $300, it's cheaper than all of the other ones that I've already mentioned. So once I had the sound dialed in, it definitely brought these to life, but this is in a dynamic way. This is a very dynamic headphone. It is not meant, at least in my opinion, to be a flat or reference style headphone. The bass has plenty of punch to it. Now, it is not an overbearing bass. It's not, definitely not on the line of the Crusher wireless series that Skullcandy already has. So it doesn't have like that haptic feedback bass, if you're familiar with that. But the bass is still pretty aggressive if you want it to be. So it can have that thick punch to it. Luckily, though, it didn't roll over anything else. It didn't affect the mids and the highs. Mids and highs actually sound pretty great in these once you dial it in. In fact, the treble at times can seem to even be a little bit harsh, so you may want to dial that back a little bit. But Vocalist stood out. I think Vocalist always had like a step or two in front of, all of the other instruments and everything going on. And that was just always pleasing to hear. Again, it didn't matter what genre I was going to. It sounded great with obviously the more mainstream genres like pop, hip hop. It sounded great with metal, so it was able to handle, if there's a lot of stuff going on, it didn't seem to get confused. It didn't get muddy or congested. It really did kind of hold its own no matter what I was listening to. So my overall opinion is this. I think I was going to love these no matter what, just simply for the nostalgia I have for Skullcandy Aviators in general. And they pretty much gave me exactly what I was asking for, was just a wireless version of what was already one of my favorite headphones from way back in the day. And they delivered on that. It still looks like those, but where they delivered is in the battery life, in the noise canceling, in the sound, just as long as it's not the sound out of the box. And overall, I couldn't be any happier with these. I'm not like the biggest fan of the controls. I don't like that there's so many different things going on. It also has the smart sensors. So, if you take them off, it'll pause what you're listening to. And then when you put them back on, it'll just go back to what you're listening to. So these are going to be my go-to headphones. Again, I don't know if it's just for nostalgia reasons, but as soon as I put them on, played around with the settings and got it exactly where I wanted to, I'm just happy to finally have a wireless pair of Aviator headphones. And I think the noise canceling is just icing on the cake, because I didn't even expect to have noise canceling. I just wanted a wireless version of what I always enjoyed. But guys, that's my video on the brand new Skullcandy Aviator 900 ANCs. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.